Forest School. Hello again, Jamie here. Wonderful to see you all this fine Monday. Today I'm standing by, just give you a little background, a spring. We have all this water coming down, and I wonder if you can recognize a plant of the day that we did the first day. Kind of see it all there. Remember which one it's called? Swamp cabbage or skunk cabbage. And we can get up close to it in a sec. And I'll show you how it's kind of developed, and then I'll talk about our new plant of the day, which is going to be dandelions. I'm sure you've seen those all around, and we'll talk about all the uses you can have for dandelions and where they come from. So let's walk over here. I found a dandelion that looks like it wants to hang out with us. So, and do you guys know where springs come from? Springs come from underground aquifers, which are just big amounts of fresh water underground, and they flow up through springs above ground, and then they eventually kind of flow into some lakes and waterways, things like that. So that's what this one is. You can even see some water coming down through here, and it's just coming right out of the ground. Now also, look at this swamp cabbage here. Look at this giant leaf. Look how big it's gotten. Much bigger than when we did the plant of the day about a couple weeks ago. So they get super big. So let's see if you can follow me up here. All right. So I was scoping out this dandelion, and I even saw some bees around here because they love dandelions. But anyway, let's get a close-up on this dandelion in just a sec, and then we can maybe have you draw it as well. So first, talking about the dandelion, where does the name dandelion come from? So I looked this up, and dandelion is actually taken from the French word, which means lion's tooth, and I won't even try to pronounce the French word, but anyway, dandelion is a pretty much a mispronunciation of the French word for lion's tooth. And can you zoom in on the dandelion itself? So first, if you want to draw this too, looking at the leaf, look at the ridges here. What do those look like? Do you see maybe where that name comes from, lion's tooth? Almost looks like sharp tooth. And that's one really good way to be able to identify a dandelion. Obviously, you can look at the yellow flowers. Those are super recognizable as well. And so, dandelion, do you think the dandelion is a native species to... Hold on, we'll wait for this motorcycle to pass. Beautiful day. People want to be outside on their toys. So, do you think dandelions are native species to North America? Well, I looked it up because I was curious. I didn't know either, and they actually come from Europe and Asia. So that means they're not native to North America, but they're all over the place. Although some people don't consider them to be an invasive species, even though they're all over, and that's because they have so many benefits. So I believe dandelions were brought over when first Europeans began colonizing North America several hundred years ago. And there's a bee right there. Look at that. Pollinating these little flowers here. But they also love dandelions. You'll see them come around. which is super cool. So yeah, dandelions were brought over several hundred years ago, and why do you think European settlers came over with dandelions? Do you think they were just cute little flowers that they like to have their kids pop the heads off of and blow them in the late summer? Maybe that's one use, although they have a lot of different medicinal uses. So let's talk about that. The dandelion leaves. These right here, there's here, look at that. Looks fun. But we're doing plants of the day. We'll go with the flow here. All right. So the leaves, super nutritional. Now you can eat these in a salad. In fact, you go to the grocery store sometimes. I know Whole Foods sometimes has them. You can actually buy these, or you could just pick them outside. But there are people who pay $3 for a bunch of these in the grocery store. And now you know that you can just go outside and grab them. But be careful, because sometimes people don't want them in their yard. So depending on where you get them, people may spray pesticides on them or herbicides and things to actually kill the dandelions because they don't look like grass. So hopefully the noise is not too bad. This is like motorcycle country here. We'll just wait. Alright. So those are the leaves. They can be sprayed, and unfortunately a lot of people do that. So if you're going to try to forage these, just make sure in your yard they're not sprayed with chemicals, or if you find them out on a trail in the wild, they should be okay. Just be careful about that. Another thing people do for a medicinal use for them, or even just like you can make dandelion tea. So that's the root and the tap root, which is that long root that goes all the way in. Those are super nutritional, and you can take the root out and I think you roast it, and then you can make a tea with it. So that's super good too. Of course, not all plants are only made for people, so the animals love to use them too. We pointed out some bees. The bees love them. They're really good for pollinating, and that serves as a food source for bees to be able to get them through the seasons. Other butterflies love them, and even little smaller critters can hide under them. They're awesome that way too. Really good foods there. Other uses, even though they're not native again to our area in North America, they're still really beneficial. So they can help break up really dry soil. Sometimes soil that it's hard for water to get into, or even hard for a little worm to squirm around in, and their roots will kind of create these little air pockets that helps rain penetrate the soil a little bit better, and helps worms kind of inch around in there a little bit too. So that's really cool as well. Let's see what else. I've even read that the birds sometimes use the part of the flower to pad their nests. Really cool things. I didn't even know all this, and I've known dandelions for my whole life, and just looked it up a little bit more. So that was really cool. Of course, they're super fun in the fall. They get those little fuzzies and fluffies, and you can blow them off. And those are actually the seeds of the dandelion. So when you blow them, you're actually blowing seeds. So if you don't want them in your yard, careful not to do that in there. Although dandelions, they'll come back every year, even though, within the same plant itself. So do you know what that is called? When there's a plant that comes back every year, you don't have to replant it. It's a perennial. So that basically means that, each year its root system will reflower as well. So that, you may have already known a lot of that. I know you guys are very smart when it comes to the plants, but hopefully you learned a couple new things. And when you see dandelions now, you may be able to find a couple more uses. Of course, you can make dandelion bracelets, or even use the shape of the leaves for art projects. So really cool stuff. Lastly, one other fun fact about them is their roots go very deep, and they'll pull out nutrients and bring them up into their leaves and flowers. So I think that's why a lot of people don't call them invasive species, even though they're not native to North America. They bring so many other benefits to the environment that most people like to let them stay. So thanks guys, hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, wonderful rest of forest school. I miss you all so much, and talk to you soon.